turn the volume. Hello, everybody. A little bit early, so I'll wait for a couple more people. Can everyone hear me okay, if anyone's there already? Hello. Hello, Hong. Great, good to see that you can hear me. I'm just gonna wait one more minute, and then we'll get started. I am not in North Korea. All right. Anyway, it's 10 a.m. here for me, 10 p.m. for the UK. I don't know what time zone you're in, but anyway, we're gonna start the live stream. So hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome. So this is actually my first live stream on this channel. So I'm pretty excited to kind of talk with you guys and answer any questions that you have. So what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. I don't know how much you guys know about me and what I do and stuff. So I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. And if you have any questions, then just post them in the chat and I will try and answer them. And if you know anything about me already, then one thing that I do a lot of is I like to show a different side of North Korea, and I don't like to talk politics. So I will try and answer your questions, but please bear in mind that I'm not going to speak about kind of political stuff. It's going to be more about the area that I'm more of an expert in, which is tourism in North Korea and stuff like that. So I have a question. So SFS Gamer, what was your favorite part of North Korea? Very good question. And I have two answers for it. So my favorite place to go in North Korea is actually this place called Nampo, and it's about an hour and a half drive out of North Korea. And it's my favorite place actually for the accommodation. So it's basically this kind of hot spa resort. And calling it a resort definitely makes it sound very cool and very luxurious, but it's really not. It's a very 80s kind of style area, but it's my favorite place because all the guides really like to go there. So the North Korean guides and the drivers and stuff, they really like to go there and hang out. It's a very cool place to just have some barbecue, enjoy some drinks together, and just basically chill out away from Pyongyang city. So that's one of my favorites, and I pick to go there if I'm ever in North Korea by myself. I always take a little day trip out there or an evening trip. And then my second favorite place is a place called Chilbosan in the very northeast of North Korea. And I've only actually been there once, but it's one of my favorite places because it's so beautiful, gorgeous mountains. I have a few pictures on my Instagram. And then if you have anything else you want to know about Chilbosan, let me know. But it's basically a very cool area. Not many people go there, but it is absolutely gorgeous. Harley B, love the new logo. Thank you very much. Is it possible to, Antenolupi, is it possible to watch a local North Korean league football match? It is. It's possible to watch football in North Korea. Not right now, unfortunately, the borders are still closed, but you can go and watch them, watch football there. They play it in the stadium, in Kim Il-sung Stadium, which is also where they have the Pyongyang Marathon. And if you're interested, then you can go there and watch a football game. Obviously, you need to be there at a time when there is a football match on. But if you're definitely interested in that, then you can ask your travel company to kind of help facilitate that. Annyeong, Zoe. Annyeong. What's the name? What's the name of the park in Pyongyang with the giant eyeball? I have no idea what you mean, Matt Molly. Can you maybe tell me a little bit more about what you mean? George Price, what is your best estimate for when North Korea will reopen for tourism? I was wondering when this question would come up. So in all honesty, I have no idea when North Korea will open for tourism. And that's basically because it is entirely dependent on the pandemic situation. And as we all know, we can't really see when that's gonna, we can't see into the future and see what's gonna happen with that. So unfortunately, I really cannot say when North Korea will reopen. It could be the end of this year. It could be next year. I would really hope that it would reopen by next year or sometime next year. But I really cannot say. They're being super strict at the moment. They were one of the first countries to close. I think they closed on the 19th of January, 2020, just a couple of days after I left, actually. And so they're being extremely strict with the pandemic. And so we can only say they'll probably be one of the last countries to open again. Depends if there are things like, I don't know, having a vaccination passport, stuff like that. But yeah, when it will reopen really depends on the pandemic situation. Okay. Do North Korean movie theaters show foreign films? Yes, they do. Actually, one of the last times I was there, either in December or a few months ago, in September or October time, I can't remember. They had the Pyongyang International Film Festival, and I was there for that. And it was pretty cool because actually I had 3 days just by myself without any tourists. And it was during the film festival. So basically I just spent my time going to see different films at the cinema and stuff. It was pretty cool going to a North Korean cinema. The big thing that was in last year or 2 years ago was Bollywood films. So they really like Indian films. You'll see a lot of Indian, a lot of Russian films. Of course, not every foreign film is available in the Dprk. It's very strict. But yeah, there are foreign films available, and the cinemas were packed, especially with the Indian Bollywood style ones. There were people sitting on the floors, really crowding to get in. It was very cool to see. Cars 453. Have you been to South Korea? Yeah, I've been a few times to various places in South Korea. Actually, before I came to the South Pacific, which is where I am now, totally different story. I was in South Korea. Tom Beresford, how many times have you visited the DMZ? Have you ever seen tourists on the South Korean side when visiting? So I've been to the DMZ about 20 times. I've been to North Korea just under about 30 times. And pretty much every time I'll go to the DMZ, but on a shorter tour, I won't go to the DMZ. So I've probably been there about 20 times, and I've seen South Korean people on the other side about 2 or 3 times. Previously, there used to be South Korean visitors there all the time, but then they changed it. So basically, the North Korean visitors, on the North Korean side, the tourists visit in the morning, and then on the South Korean side, the tourists visit in the afternoon. And it's basically because actually, if you're visiting from the South Korean side, you're not allowed to wave or acknowledge the people on the North Korean side. On the North Korean side, you can wave, you can shout at them, whatever. But they're especially strict on the South Korean side. So they don't really like, to have tourists there at the same time. When I've seen tourists there, it's been because maybe they're on a special visit, it's journalists, something like that. Okay, so Jonathan P., what was your first time in North Korea like, and when was it? Very good question. My first time in North Korea was about 6 or 7 years ago. It's kind of interesting, actually, because I didn't visit Pyongyang. So Pyongyang, the capital, is basically where everyone visits when they go to North Korea. Even if you're going to a different place in the countryside, you'll always go to Pyongyang first. It's the entry point. But actually, I went to a place called Rason, which is in the very northeast of North Korea, and it's hardly visited at all. And you enter at a different point. So usually you'll enter from China, Beijing or Dandong. But Rason, you enter through a different place called Yenji in China, and it's right in the northeast. And Rason actually borders Russia and China. very cold up there, but very cool because it's basically North Korea's special economic zone. So there's lots of trade and stuff that goes on there. You'll see a lot more foreigners, Russians. You won't see pretty much any foreign tourists because it's one of the least visited places. But it's a very cool area. And what was it like? I mean, for me, I think the way that I'll always describe North Korea, traveling there, is that it's kind of pleasantly underwhelming. So it's pretty normal compared to what you'll see on the media. And the people there are lovely. Like, I remember it being cold. And I just remember being like, oh, okay, like, yeah, this is a country and people live here and people carry on their daily lives, no matter what's, the politics or what's going on behind them. And that's kind of what fueled me to want to do what I'm doing, because we have such prejudice on North Korea and what goes on in there and stuff. So it's good to just kind of be able to see that for yourself. And I wanted to kind of show the world, okay, there's a different side to North Korea than what we just see in the media. Okay. The mass game's always a highlight. Yep, the mass game's pretty cool. There's a public park in Pyongyang that literally has a molding of a giant eyeball. I found it on Google Maps and thought it'd be interesting. Honestly, I have no idea. There are a few public parks that I've been to in Pyongyang. I've never seen one with a giant eyeball statue. Really no idea. Harley B123, what's your favorite North Korean food? Are there a lot of vegan or vegetarian options? So actually, my favorite North Korean food, well, it's kind of more of a North Korean snack, is this thing called imjilbap. And it's basically, how do I describe it? So it's vegan, actually. And it's basically this kind of fake mock meat tofu kind of thing that wraps around rice, kind of sweet rice. And then the sauce that you dip it in is like spicy sauce. And it's super, super cheap. The locals love it. It's such like a local food. You can't get it in South Korea. It's a North Korean thing. And that's definitely my favorite snack. Whenever I go to a place that's kind of got like street foodie stuff or the supermarket, then I always get that. Just sit down with the guides and I can eat 7 or 8 of them. It's really good. But otherwise, I love Pyongyang cold noodles as well. Literally just cold noodles. And in terms of vegan and vegetarian food, it's fine. Like, there's options. If you're going as part of like a tour, the tour company can facilitate that for you. There's lots and lots of vegetables and tofu and stuff like that. The way that it works when you go on tour is that basically they put all of the food in the middle of the table and everyone just kind of shares it. So you just let your tour company know in advance that you're vegan or vegetarian, and then they'll probably prepare a couple of extra dishes for you. Okay, someone just asked the question that I was looking forward to and also not looking forward to coming up. So, Abby, don't you think that it's unethical to support the North Korean regime? So, have a sip of my coffee before that. No, I don't think it's unethical. I have a whole video on the ethics of traveling to North Korea. So, I'm not going to answer it in such depth here because it would take up probably the whole live stream, and I want to get through as many questions as possible. So I'll just answer it super quickly, but I really do recommend to go and check out my video. It's pretty long, so feel free to fast forward through it. But I cover a lot of points in there because basically I think that it is ethical to travel to North Korea. And there's a few reasons, but the main point is that I basically think that North Korea does more good than bad, and not traveling to North Korea already isolates isolates an already isolated nation even more. So I believe that, okay, the money may go to the government, it may go into building rockets, whatever, but the good that comes out of it, the human interaction, even just a smile to people on the streets, that kind of human interaction is so important in the country, that it does a lot more good than it does bad. And that's not to say, like, there's also tour companies, they do lots of work with charities and stuff like that. So there really is like a whole load of layers with that. But yeah, in the end, I believe it's ethical. That's why I do my job. And that's why I promote tourism to North Korea, because I believe there is more benefits to negative stuff in it. Okay. Comrade Kim Goes Flying was a good movie to see. Yeah, that's a very good movie. Hi, weird question. If you are outside on the street this is OSIP 667. If you're outside in the street in North Korea and you really need to go pee, can you go somewhere to the bush? Okay, that is a weird question. But I mean, I would say no, I would definitely not recommend that. Not because it's like weird not because it's illegal in a weird North Korean way, like, oh my God, things you can't do in North Korea, but just because I think that they probably find that really offensive. I've seen people like in the countryside driving and stuff like that. You see guys on the side of the road, but like, yeah, definitely would not recommend doing it in Pyongyang, because they're a very proud nation, like, and it's very, very clean. Just would not recommend it. There are toilets everywhere. Don't worry. Gary Clark, are tourists free to walk around the city? No. So, I mean, you can go for walks around the city, but the rules of North Korea is that you always need to have a North Korean guide with you. That's not the rule for foreigners. So basically, foreigners that live there, they have a special permit. Maybe they're working on for the embassy, NGOs, stuff like that. They can walk around by themselves. But for tourists, yeah, you need to have a North Korean guide with you. And you can walk around. It's really funny, actually. So tourists always want to walk everywhere. You know, when you go there, you're set up with this big like tourism bus with aircon and stuff, which is very, very good in the summer. But yeah, tourists always want to walk everywhere. And this is actually a really cute story. So one of the guides that I'm pretty good friends with, she said to me one day, she went to Vietnam to basically represent North Korean tourism. She went to some kind of like show thing. And she said to me like, oh, Zoe, like, it was the first time that she'd gone abroad as well. She said, Zoe, I finally realized why the tourists, they want to walk everywhere all the time. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, when I was in Vietnam, it was a new place. I wanted to walk everywhere. I didn't want to go on the bus. I wanted to go out and explore and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, that's so interesting that you've kind of like never like considered it from her point of view before. So it was really interesting to kind of see that. But yeah, you can walk around. It's just basically really impractical because you need to get to a lot of places and you can't like literally just walk around all the time. But when you walk around, you'll need to have a guide with you. Hi, I want to ask, are you vlog in Tonga right now? Redononones. Yes, I am currently in Tonga. That's an entirely different story. Very random. Basically ended up here and currently going through the pandemic in Tonga, which currently doesn't have any COVID cases. So pretty sweet being here. Avi, are you allowed to move to North Korea? If you're going for work or study or something like that, then you can move there. Me personally, no. But yeah, there are people that live there, but it's not easy. Cars 453, have you seen the tallest hotel in North Korea, the Hotel of Doom? I think you're probably referring to the Ryugyong Hotel. And yes, it's the tallest hotel in North Korea. So when you go through Pyongyang, it's pretty difficult to not see it. It's not open. It's currently been being built since the 1980s. It's still not open. No one knows when it's going to open, if it will open, but it does have a pretty cool light display of it every evening at, I think, 7 p.m. till 10 p.m. or till 9 p.m. I have like a really short video on my North Korea Uncut playlist if you want to see what that's like. Alice Monroe, how much Korean do you speak? Are you able to talk with locals often or mostly just guides? And do you have a translator if you can't speak Korean? Very good question. So I'm currently learning Korean, and the reason why I'm learning Korean is because I want to talk to the locals and especially the other people that I work with more. So obviously the guides that I work with, they speak amazing English. Their English is so good, but there are lots of other people that I see on a daily basis but can't speak to. So for example, the restaurant staff of restaurants that we often go to, the hotel staff of hotels that we often stay in, the bus drivers, stuff like that. You spend so much time with them, to be honest, and it's frustrating for me to not be able to speak to them. Obviously, if I want to speak to them, ask them a question, if I need something, then I can ask my guides to translate for me, but it's frustrating having to ask them all the time. So I'm trying to learn Korean. I can speak basic daily conversation. I can't read all of these comments in Korean because it would take me way too long to try and translate them. So sorry, guys, for all of my Korean friends talking in Korean to me right now. But I can speak enough to get by, and definitely I'm trying to learn more right now. Hong, I'm not going to ignore the question, but so if you are openly to criticize Kim Jong-un or the Workers' Party, I mean, like, I'm sure there would be consequences. It depends what I would say. I don't have TikTok, unfortunately. Sorry, Kaz. Ralph Hexam. Hi, the nice top you're wearing. Is it from NK? And if so, what are the latest fashions? Good question. So no, this is not from North Korea, but I can definitely actually really imagine the North Koreans really liking it. North Korean fashion is, honestly, in Pyongyang, they are very, very fashionable. And the fashion, I would say, is very modest. It's very chic. It's very like 1980s. All of the women walk around wearing high heels. They like to have nice bags. They like to dress immaculately, very nicely. Honestly, whenever I go there, I feel like, man, I need to spend at least an hour more on my appearance every morning, because the girls, they just show me up all the time. They really do care about what they wear and how they look, how they present themselves. And the fashion, they get a lot of it, I guess, that they're influenced from China. But otherwise, it's just very kind of plain, modest, but there are, I definitely see a lot more different style and stuff like that and use of colors, but it's still pretty like just chic. William, I talked, so how soon will NK lift the corona restrictions again and allow tourists? I talked about that before. We don't know. Basically, depends on the pandemic situation, to be honest. Ooh. Jesper, where are most tourists going to Dprk from? I would say generally the top countries that go to North Korea: Australia, New Zealand, UK, used to be America, but now because of the travel ban, Americans can't go. European countries, Germany, Netherlands, really from everywhere, but those are the kind of top countries I would say. And then of course China. Chinese tourists are the most. In summer, 2 years ago, they had to limit the Chinese tourists to 1,000 a day. So that's an idea about how many Chinese tourists might be going in. Matt Morley, I have a severe peanut allergy. Yeah, I know that very well. Trust me, don't worry. Absolutely no problem. I also have an allergy, a severe allergy where I have to carry an EpiPen. And in North Korea, peanuts are generally not used, but basically you'll have to tell your tour company and then guides again in North Korea. Don't worry about it. They will be very aware. But just, I mean, I'm sure you know allergy. So I would just say, every time you go into a restaurant, even though the guides know, even though the waitresses know, every time you go in, just make sure that they know and just say again, can I ask if there's any peanuts in the food? But otherwise, absolutely no problem, can be accommodated for. I also have a very severe allergy. What am I drinking? I'm drinking coffee. It's the morning here. Samtel, have you been to South Korea? Yep, I've been to South Korea. I answered that before. Been to a few places, been to Seoul, of course, and then been to various places, including some border towns, but I've never been to the DMZ from the South Korean side. Tom Beresford, how's the experience flying with Air Koryo? The airport experience flying from North Korea? Flying from Air Koryo, honestly, is, has anyone ever flown Ryanair? Any Europeans here that have ever flown Ryanair? So Ryanair is a pretty awful airline, but I mean, it's budget, right? Actually, Air Koryo is a lot nicer than Ryanair, to be honest, because it's a lot bigger. So you have a lot more like seat room and stuff. So it's really nice. The waitresses are really nice, really accommodating. Sorry, not waitresses, air hostesses. They're really nice, really accommodating. I mean, it's fine. Everyone talks about Air Koryo being the world's worst airline and stuff like that. It's really fine. It's really not that bad. The planes are a bit outdated, sure. But I've flown worse. For example, Ryanair. And I've actually flown a domestic flight as well throughout North Korea. So when I went up to Cheongjin, which I mentioned before, Chilbosan, which I mentioned before, and also Mount Pegtu-san, I've taken 2 domestic flights in North Korea as well. It's a pretty standard flight experience. Can we all remember what flying is like? Like, I've pretty much forgotten it. But yeah, no, flying Air Koryo is absolutely fine. Really nothing interesting to say about that. And the flying experience from North Korea, again, just like taking a normal flight. Pyongyang airport is massive, it's clean, not so many people there. The only people that you'll generally see there is North Koreans or maybe some Chinese or other tourists. Yeah, and when you fly to North Korea, it's just like getting a plane anywhere in the world. You'll see Pyongyang written on the board when getting a flight, and you go to that gate, you go to that check-in gate where it says Pyongyang, and you check in. You need your passport and your visa, then you'll check in for your flight, go through security, you'll wait at the gate, and then you'll get on your flight. Same as any other flight. Pam M, I miss Mr. Lee too. He's a very good friend of mine. Spin Fuser, do you think a first-time tourist should take the train or the plane in? Very good question. So I would probably say you should take the train in. And that's only because I think people that take the train in have a different experience, because you get on the train, and waiting at the train station is probably the first time, at the airport as well, is probably the first time when you're going to see North Koreans, because there are lots of them in China, and they'll be getting back to their homes and stuff. So you'll see a lot of North Koreans on the train. You may even be sharing a carriage or a room with them on the train. And I think it just is the first big thing that takes away any preconceptions that you might have of North Korea. So you see the North Koreans and you're like, wow, North Korean. And then you realize, oh, okay, they're just talking and laughing with their friends, having some drinks. And then, they might even invite you over for some drinks if they can speak English. And I think also seeing all of North Korea, seeing the countryside, you travel for about 7 hours on the train, maybe about 5 hours on the train. I can't remember now. Between 5 and 7 hours on the train, you travel through North Korea from Sinuiju, which is the border city just right next to China, 10 minutes drive from China. And then you travel down to Pyongyang. And because people just look at North Korea, you just look outside the window for 5 or 6 hours, it really takes away from the whole, oh, it's all fake, it's not real, blah, blah, blah. It really takes away from that whole preconceptions. And I think people who take the flight, they don't get that. And it takes a little bit longer for them to be like, oh, okay, maybe it's not all staged, not all fake. James Beale, is it scary to be there? I'm not going to answer your next question, but is it scary to be there? Absolutely not. I mean, in all honesty, North Korea is a safe country as long as you follow the rules. That's what I'll always say. I never, ever have once felt unsafe in North Korea. And of course, there are rules to follow. just like in any country, you don't want to disrespect the rules, but it's particularly important in North Korea. Yeah, it's as long as you follow the rules, which you are completely briefed on before you go by your travel company. If you follow the rules, then really it's a very safe country. You don't have to worry about walking around on the street and getting pickpocketed. You don't have to worry about, anything like that. So it's very safe. And what I'll say about breaking rules as well. So for example, taking pictures. So taking pictures is pretty chilled, but obviously there are rules, and one of them is, for example, you're not allowed to take pictures of military or construction sites. So for example, if you accidentally take a picture and it has a military guard in the background or something, and the guide sees, or maybe the military guard sees, and he tells the guide, hey, this person took a picture of me, then don't worry. So the guide will come up to you and be like, hey, listen, did you take this picture? Can I just check your phone? And then you'll show them, and then they'll say like, oh, I'm really sorry, like, can you delete that picture because it's got the military in? And if you did it by mistake, then you will also be like, oh, delete it, and it's fine. If that happens again, then also, they'll let you off. If it happens a third or fourth or fifth time, then they'll start to be like, well, at first it was a mistake, but you've taken a lot of these pictures now, so we're starting to think it's not a mistake. And then obviously it gets more and more serious if you keep doing it. But if you make a mistake once or twice, then don't worry about it, depending on what the mistake is. George Price, do you know how much longer you'll be in Tonga for? Are the borders closed? Yes, the borders are entirely closed here. It's also very similar to North Korea in that it's very, very strict in terms of the pandemic here. I don't know how much longer I'll be here. It's coming up to my 1-year anniversary after coming here for a weekend trip. So I don't know how long I'll be here. Maybe another few months. Let's see. And are the borders closed? Yeah. The borders are completely closed. They're only letting in very few kind of repatriation flights and stuff. There's no real way to get into this country, definitely not for tourism. I could get home. I could get back to the UK, but through various reasons, I've decided to stay here for now. Gary Clark, do tourists need to take cash or are debit or credit cards in use? Absolutely, tourists needs to take cash. There's no Apple Pay, there's no online pay, there's no credit cards, there's no debit cards. There is absolutely 100% zero access to cash once you're in North Korea. So you need to take as much as you need. And generally, I recommend, really generally, about 50 euros per day. And that's just because everything is included in your travel once you're there. So all your food and stuff like that. So technically you could spend your entire time not spending money, but you'll want to buy little things, like maybe one day you'll spend buying a beer or some water or something, and then the next day you'll go to a souvenir shop and spend 200 euros on souvenirs. So I say generally on average 50 euros a day should be more than enough. Hi, Masaki M. Hello, Zoe from Japan. Hey, hello. How you doing? Thank you very much. Okay. Abby, does it get cold in the winter outside and inside hotels and houses? Yes. Yeah, it gets cold. And I mean, North Korea is not a super rich country, obviously, so the heating and stuff like that, it can be limited. In Pyongyang, you'll be fine. In Pyongyang, the hotels and all the rooms, they'll be heated completely fine. But in the countryside, it can get very cold. All the hotel rooms, you don't need to worry about a cold night. All the hotel rooms will have sufficient heating, but it does get cold. And there are some times, especially when I was in Rason, like I was saying at the start of this, is my first place that I went. It's very, very cold up there in the Northeast. You go into a coffee shop to warm up, and the coffee shop is cold. The only thing that's going to warm you up is the coffee. The bus is heated. It does get cold in Pyongyang. So the coldest time I've ever experienced it was New Year's Eve, 2019 to 2020. My second to last time there since the borders have closed. And honestly, New Year's Eve was about -15 outside. It was freezing, like really, really cold. But I guess the atmosphere kind of warmed me up. But yeah, really cold. The buses are all heated though, so you don't have to worry about it too much, but you definitely do have to wrap up warm. Oh yeah, okay, Lurker Octopus. I didn't even mention that before. What is the infamous air choreo burger? Talk about air choreo before, but the air choreo burger, I don't know why it gained so much fame. I think it's because it's supposedly like a mystery meat burger. I've never had it. I mean, I always get offered it, but to be honest, never eaten it. Yeah, I mean, I hear everyone who's had it has always been like, it's fine. No one really knows what meat it is. Maybe it's chicken, maybe it's beef. Who knows? Let's keep that little mystery. But there we go. You get it on every flight. The mysterious air choreo burger. Heard it's not so bad. Joseph Kian, how large are the ski resorts? Do they have difficult runs? So actually, for those interested in skiing and stuff, my next vlog, which is coming out next week on Friday, is about the last time that I was in North Korea, which was at the ski resort with Mr. Lee, which who's become a bit of a personality. I think a few of you guys here know Mr. Lee. A few of you have mentioned him in the comments. He is, the resort is very cool. So I was there, Masikryong Ski Resort. And there are, you know what, I just made a whole vlog on this and I memorized everything, but I really can't remember how many runs there are. I think there's about 8 or 9 runs. It's not massive, but it's big and it's really nice because there's really not that many people there. The only people you'll generally see there are local North Koreans. When I was there was only one family there was like 5 Chinese people. There was tons of North Koreans, and then it was just me. I was the only Westerner there. And yeah, it's just so peaceful and so nice. You don't have to queue up to go on the ski runs. I think it's cheap as well. I think it's probably about 40 euros, 50 euros a day. I really can't remember, but it's in the vlog next week. And it's really nice. It was snowing a lot when I was there. Rooms are amazing. I love Masikryong Hotel, the resort. It's just beautiful. You get such a beautiful view of the ski resort area. And they do ski hire there. You have to bring your own snowboard if you want to go snowboarding. They don't have snowboards for hire. They have lessons there, stuff like that. If you don't want to ski, they have tobogganing, blah, blah, blah. Very cool place. Not super big, but they have black runs. They have difficult runs. They have everything from difficult to beginner slopes. Jonathan P, are power cuts ever an issue whilst you're in North Korea? Yes, you do get power cuts. Not so much in the summer, usually during the winter more often, never usually really in Pyongyang, more in the countryside. And if you have them, the longest power cut I've ever had has been for about 10 or 15 minutes. It's really not that bad. You just, in the winter, it can happen quite a lot. So if you're on like a 10-day tour or a 2-week tour, it gets to the point where you're like, oh, another power cut. But they're usually, the first time it happens, everyone's like, oh my gosh, a power cut. And then, you start to get used to just getting your phone out and getting the torch out. And they usually last anything but, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds or 1 minute. The longest I've ever had has been about 10 minutes. It's fine, to be honest. Happens more in the countryside, less in Pyongyang. Juliana Ramirez. Can people wear whatever they want? So there is definitely, you can't just wear whatever you want. There's definitely a kind of style the North Koreans go for, nothing too garish. I think you'd probably, you definitely have to be careful in what you're wearing. Of course, there's room to have your own style and be free with what you're wearing, but there's definitely certain things that are not appropriate for people to wear. For example, it's not appropriate for women to wear jeans. But also I see that kind of thing becoming a bit more chilled out as time goes on. Maybe we'll see women wearing jeans in the next few years, or at least maybe some black pants that they can get away with. But generally, it's not super free, but it's also not super strict. Jesper, do you have any way to stay in contact with the DPRK guides or other people you know there? No, unfortunately not. So I can contact them if I need to talk to them for work and stuff like that. Obviously, we have to be in touch with our colleagues in North Korea, but I can't just contact them for a catch up to find out how they're doing. So of course, that's really sad for me. I can't talk to them and stuff. And I spend a lot of time in the country, and I spend a lot of time like kind of building up bonds and stuff. So it is sad for me not to be able to talk to them. And I definitely hope everyone's doing okay there. LDL Mandarin School, ni hao. Hello, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Juliana Ramirez, do they have things like South Korea? Depends what things you mean. You can ask me, maybe define the question a little bit more, and then ask again. I'll try and answer. Jesper, is it possible to arrange the visa in your country and neighbor country so that you can get a visa sticker in your passport? Yes, it's possible. If you have a North Korean embassy in your home country. So for example, in the UK, there's an embassy, and so I could apply to get the North Korean visa in that embassy, and then you can get it stuck in your passport. So it's possible as long as you have a North Korean embassy in your home country. So Juliana, you can't walk around like in South Korea. I spoke about this before, so I won't go over it too much. But when you walk around in North Korea, guides with you. Pam M, do you miss China? Yes, I really miss China. I really want to be back. I really want to be back in China. Unfortunately, those borders are closed still too. Spinfuser, what's the best dish you've eaten in the DPRK? I talked about this before as well. Yeah, it's basically this dish called imjolbap. It's kind of a snack, a very North Korean snack. You can't find it in South Korea. Like sweet sticky rice with like kind of fake meat on the outside. But otherwise, I just love Korean food. Things like bibimbap, so like the fried rice, or Pyongyang cold noodles. The cold noodles are really, really good. I just love everything Korean, to be honest. Do foreigners living in the so JEG, do foreigners living in North Korea have access to their home country media like TV or websites? Yeah. So usually foreigners living there are working for like NGOs or I guess embassies, diplomats and stuff like that. And they will have internet access. Actually, in North Korea, you can have internet access as a foreigner. It's just incredibly expensive. I can go through easily. If I'm not limiting my internet, I would go through 50 euros in a few hours. But I limit my internet usage a lot, and I usually spend about 50 euros every 3 days or something. Yeah, you can have access to internet, and I'm sure if you're living and working there, then the company will probably help pay for stuff like that. And then you can go online and use the internet, but that internet is only available to foreigners. Okay, Abby, have you tried dog meat in North Korea or any other unusual food? I haven't. Dog meat is a delicacy in North Korea. The North Koreans love it, and actually they have a tradition of eating it 3 times in summer because they say that it kind of heats up your body to sweat out, and it's healthy to eat in summer. I've never tried it. In terms of weird food, it's a good question. I think the weirdest thing that I've probably eaten in North Korea is probably something with ginseng in it. So ginseng is, if you don't know about it, it's like a kind of root. And it's used a lot in Korean cooking. And in Asia, it's seen as a very, very, it's used in medicine, actually. It's seen as something that's very good for you. And North Korea has arguably the best ginseng in the world. And they use it in a lot of dishes. And also to put like a kind of foreign spin on stuff, they make things like ginseng chocolate, ginseng jelly, ginseng tea. It's really awful. It's really not good. Ginseng has a very powerful taste. I suppose it would be like tasting ginger for the first time. There's really nothing like it. And it's not really a pleasant taste. Kind of like licorice, just one of those. For me, I don't like it. Other people might. People say it's very healthy. Okay. Sorry if I'm missing questions, guys. It's quite a lot of questions, and I'm only going to stay on for another 15 minutes, so I'll try and get through all these questions. George Price, is Wonsan the most popular summer holiday destination for North Koreans? I suppose so. Wonsan is located on the coast. For those that don't know, it's a coastal city on the east coast. And yeah, it's about 2 hours away from Pyongyang. It's a pretty popular place to go to. It's probably the most popular place for people who live in Pyongyang to go as a summer holiday because it's not too far away. But I wouldn't say it's the most popular place for North Koreans in general. But definitely Pyongyangers, they love to go to Wonsan. It's a very cool place. It's like a seaside kind of area, town, amazing seafood. Very cool place to go to. You can go to the beaches, swim in the sea. Very cool. Harley B123, how many times have you seen the mass games? I've seen the mass games about 10 times. Yeah, it gets a little bit samey after the first few. Hi from South Korea. I'm wondering, does North Koreans nice to you? Have you been to South Korea before? And if you are, what's the biggest difference? Oh, very good question. So, hello, South Korea. 안녕하세요. North Koreans are really nice to me. They're lovely. They're lovely. Like, they can be shy. So North Koreans on the street, local North Koreans, they probably will not want to talk to you. And I have a whole video on this. It's like, why don't North Koreans wave to me? And it's basically because why should we expect them to wave to us? In all honesty, they have their own lives going on. I don't expect them to stop and wave at me, a simple foreigner just chilling in their country. But they're really nice. And I think similar to Asian culture, especially Korean and Japanese culture, they're so hospitable because to them, you're a guest in their country. So they want to make sure that that you have the best time in their country. And so, yeah, they're lovely. The biggest difference between North and South Korea, that's so difficult. It depends completely in what respect you're talking, whether you're talking like, going out and whether you're talking politics, whether you're talking like walking on the street, whether you're talking in style, stuff like that. Honestly, there's too many differences to say the biggest difference. But what's really interesting is the similarities. And I see so many similarities between North and South in the people, in the mannerisms, in the culture, stuff like that, so that's really nice to kind of see. I'll try and think a little bit more about the biggest difference, though. Yeah. Park, are we free to chat with locals? It seems a bit staged when tourists interact with local people. I can just say, like, it's not staged. You're free to interact with local people, but as I touched on before, they probably won't want to speak to you. They're not encouraged to speak to foreigners. It's not illegal for them to speak to you, but in all honesty, they'll probably be a bit like, why would they speak to you? Obviously, if you approach them and want to speak to them, then it's fine. But also imagine how you would feel if you were walking along the street and then a foreigner approached you. You wouldn't really feel comfortable. So if you're in the right setting at the right time, of course, it's fine to speak to them. For example, I've got a few videos on being in a park, drinking and singing and talking and stuff like that with them. That's completely fine as long as, in that circumstance, I have one video of me singing with the Koreans, and how that happened was basically we were having a picnic in the park and they were doing karaoke next to us. It was on May Day, which is a national holiday in North Korea. Everyone is pretty cool and everyone is pretty chilled out. So they were singing a song I know. So I went over and I started singing along, and then they pulled me into the group and we all started singing together and taking pictures, and they were filming on their phones. That was very cool to see, like filming and taking pictures on their phones, just like we would do. Honestly, things like that aren't staged. You just can't stage things like that. So if you're in the right setting, of course, you can speak to them, but just be aware of how you would feel if you were walking along the street and someone tried to speak to you, or if someone was waving at you. You really wouldn't wave back. You'd feel quite odd about it. But sometimes, for example, there's parties in the restaurant that you're at. Maybe someone's having a birthday party. Maybe there's a group of colleagues in the restaurant that you're at, and sometimes they'll call you over for some drinks, have some chats. Yeah. Okay, where are we up to? Zealand says, no, I don't live in North Korea. I'm currently in Tonga. Masaki M, can they talk about religion? Do you mean North Koreans to North Koreans or North Koreans and foreigners? So generally, so North Korea, like religion is not practiced in North Korea. And it's also a taboo topic for us to talk about religion and to promulgate religion, to promulgate Christianity when we're in the country. So that's one of the things that we say to not talk to the North Koreans about. Can they speak English? Oh, that's another point. Yeah. So in terms of speaking to local people, that's a very important point. Unless you can speak Korean, you're probably not going to be able to speak to the local people. You might be lucky in Pyongyang. There's probably a few that can speak Korean. Actually, a reason why I learned Chinese so well is because I use a lot of Chinese in North Korea, because the North Koreans, a lot of them can speak Chinese. So I speak Chinese with them. A lot of the younger generation in Pyongyang can speak English, but in general, in the countryside, you're probably not going to find many people that can speak English. So that's a very good point. The COVID situation in North Korea, no idea. The official reports are that it's still COVID-19 free. Harley B, I have read a few North Korean books. There's a foreign language bookshop in North Korea. I've read a few. I wouldn't be able to quote any right now. Jesper, okay, how did you become a guide in the Dprk? Had you visited many times before your first work trip there? And how were you prepared for that first work trip? Okay, good question. So I became a guide in North Korea. Basically, I went my first time. I was living in Japan as an exchange student for my university. To the UK, finished my degree. And as I was finishing my degree, the company who I went with originally to North Korea, they put out a thing for hiring. And so I applied to them. And then I moved to China to work with them. And I was prepared in various ways, such as like learning from my colleagues. I went on 2 trips to North Korea as a trainee guide. And I spent a few months like kind of just looking how my colleagues were doing and learning like that. And then when I was in North Korea on a couple of trainee trips, obviously like learning on the job. And that's basically how I was prepared. The Woodstock 14, is weed a thing there? Honestly, I have a video coming out in 2 weeks or 3 weeks about is weed legal in North Korea. So I'm going to save that answer for that video. Aditya 1997, what kind of food would be served in the Yangakdo revolving restaurant? So in the Yangakdo revolving restaurant, for those that don't know, the Yangakdo Hotel is the big hotel in the just on the Taedonggang River in Pyongyang, and it's one of the most popular hotels for foreigners to stay at. And basically, in the revolving hotel one, you're probably going to have like typical, I mean, you do have typical North Korean dishes up there. So things like they have a menu of basically a lot of general typical dishes. So bibimbap, cold noodles, stuff like that. Kimchi, rice. I can't remember what's up there. Korean pancake, that kind of thing. It's really good. So Commando Crossfire, how's the food in North Korea? How's the kimchi? So I was kind of just talking about that, but thank you very much for the question. And thank you for the donation. So kimchi is really good. I love kimchi. Really interestingly, actually, kimchi is a lot spicier in North Korea than in South Korea. And the further north you go, the spicier it gets, and the further south you go, the sweeter it gets, even in North Korea. So when you go to Kaesong, which is the DMZ area right on the border to South Korea, the kimchi there is a lot sweeter. And then when you go further up north, honestly, in Chongjin, in Cheolbosan, right on the border to Russia and right in the northeast of North Korea, I almost can't eat the kimchi there because it's so spicy, really spicy, but it's good. And then the food in general, it's really good. There's so much variety. They have, so generally this typical Korean food, that's the most common restaurant, is the typical Korean food restaurants, but then they also have foreign food restaurants. So there's Japanese restaurants, there's a pizza place, there's a couple of pizza places, there's hamburgers. Yeah, a lot of options. What other countries do you enjoy visiting? I want to visit every single country in the world. Yeah, no, I love visiting every country. I love Asian countries. There's too many countries to mention on this chat, and we've only got 5 minutes left. So, what's your favorite underground? Okay, Ralph Hexam, what is your favorite underground metro station? Okay, very interesting question. I do not have a favorite underground metro station. They're all pretty cool. No one's ever asked me that before. I do here on Metro, but I don't have a favorite station. They're currently, I'd love to see what it's like when I go back now, because they're currently developing various stations in the Pyongyang Metro. I hope that they've kept a few, the original style, although the new style is pretty cool as well, pretty modern. Key. All right, a couple of last more questions before we finish. So, Avi, are North Koreans allowed to marry foreigners or travel outside North Korea? So, travel outside of North Korea. Yes, North Koreans can travel outside North Korea. I've got a whole video on that if you want to find out more. But basically, they travel abroad for work purposes, study purposes, things like that. They can travel abroad, but it's not easy. You need a special permit. It's not just like as easy as hopping on a plane. Alvaro Gonzalez, can North Korean buy cell phones? What type of cell phones do they have? Interestingly enough, yes, they can buy cell phones. And in Pyongyang, you'll see a lot of people, most people have smartphones. I think everyone has a cell phone now, like a mobile phone. Most people in Pyongyang have a smartphone. Some of them even have 2 smartphones. And the style, so there's 2 different types. There's the Pyongyang brand, and then there's the Arirang brand. And I really can't remember which one it is because I haven't seen them in so long now, but one of the brands looks suspiciously like an iPhone, and the other one works on a it looks very similar to kind of Huawei's cell phones. But honestly, the smartphones, you could think it was a smartphone that you've just picked up in any country in the world. They're pretty normal. There's 2 main brands. Nicholas Stapleton, are North Korean people sports mad? Would it be possible to watch? Yeah, a couple of people have asked already. It's possible to watch a football match there. You just need to be in the right place at the right time. Obviously, if you're on like a planned tour, it's not easy to just be like, hey, can we go and watch the football? But if you're on a private tour, it's a lot easier. Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty sports mad. Their favorite sport is volleyball. You'll see people playing volleyball everywhere, and also ping pong. They're very talented in that. Gary Clark, thanks for the live stream. I'll be booking as soon as COVID is over. We'll hope to see you there. So I've just got like 1 more minute left that I'm going to stay on for. So let me see, 1 more question. Jesper, so just to go on from what I was saying about the cell phones, can tourists buy those smartphones? Yes, you can buy the smartphones. You can buy the Arirang, you can buy the Pyongyang smartphones. You can buy any electronic you want in North Korea. The problem is they are not compatible with your SIM card. So you will not be able to use it. The only thing that it will be good for is as a very expensive prop to say, hey, look, I went to North Korea. This is very cool. And then it will sit on your shelf and do nothing. But they're not cheap. They're the same price as kind of like cheaper than iPhones, but you're looking at a few hundred, if not a few thousand euros. So it's a very expensive piece of equipment to not be able to use it. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop there. Thank you, everyone, for all of your questions. Thank you for joining in with me from this live stream. Feel free to I'm going to upload this video, so feel free to put in the comments what you want to see from my next kind of live stream. This was kind of more casual and stuff, but feel free to write what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see less of. And if you have any more questions, put it in the comments on this video, and I will answer them in due time. So thank you very much for joining, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.